Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, what do we have? Episode 167 today.
167. Got nothing for that.
Yeah, I got nothing either. Anyway, hey, ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is our website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is how you can send us an email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon, and we do have 3 new Patreons this week. Well,
that's awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. It really helps us to keep this thing going. Patreon.com/digital-to-dice. All righty. So I guess we'll start with the weather. It's just been raining over here.
We should start with the show topic.
Let's start with the weather. It's 50 and raining. All the snow's gone. How about you?
Well, we're about to get your snow. We're supposed to get 5 inches tonight, 4 inches on Sunday, and by next Wednesday, close to another foot.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's that time of year. We're lucky.
I've been lucky. I've been able to get out most of the
Sometimes
winter,
you get snowed in for months out there, huh?
Well, yeah, because of the way they shovel. But if we're going to get like 2 feet of snow between now and next Wednesday, yeah, I'm in for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, we got lucky. We had that one storm. I didn't know we were getting snow. It was like 3 inches, and next thing you know, it was gone like 3 days later. So we're all happy with that.
It's 34 in town right now, but went out for this morning for a walk and for a snack, and it was pretty raw. And if it's raw this time of year, it means it's pretty humid.
That drives me nuts is you go on Facebook or whatever and you post about, oh, we got snow and cold, and there's someone in Florida or California or Arizona that like posts a picture of them like outside with bare feet. It's like, oh, come on. They just do it just to bug you.
Bob Busser, who is one of the ultimate stadium photographers. He's got thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures he's taken of ballparks all over the country. Been doing it since he was a kid back in the 70s. He lives near Mammoth.
Okay.
And that part of California, you're not going barefoot. They've had 4 feet of snow in the last week.
Ooh, well, California is huge. It's like extended.
California is pretty big, and this has been an especially snowy winter for California.
Yeah. You
can either have it out west or you can have it here in the east. But apparently you can't have it in both.
Yep. Well, that's fine. They can have the snow this time. So anyway, hey, so today's topic is something we did, we look way back now, episode 60, which is back in October of 2020. Did we figure that out?
Yeah, it's been 2 years. If it's 107 episodes ago, it's been at least 2 years.
So episode 60, and it was called Playing as the Enemy. So we're going to revisit that today, and this is going to be Playing as the Enemy Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we get another...
Or revisiting.
Whatever you want to call it. But we're going to go back and talk about that again to see if in 2 years if things have changed for us. I know I got a few more things that I'd like to add to that as far as playing as the enemy. But anyway, so that is the topic of the day. All right, well, we got the weather out of the way. So what have you been playing?
Okay, Al. Let's see. The 2001 in action PC season Odyssey rolling right along. We are almost to the last week of April. And surprisingly enough, in an era that was pretty high offense, I mean, we're right in the middle of the B12 generation, if you will. Lots of cream and little extra energy and all that. I keep having pitcher's duel after pitcher's duel after pitcher's duel. Now, of course, I pick the games that I want to play in there against good teams, but still, it's like, wow, I don't remember it being this exciting. So, yeah, I just finished week number 3 of that. And the Cincinnati Reds are the surprise team. I think they were a 100-loss team in real life. Well, they're in first.
Wow, nice.
They're in first, and they just beat the Mets on a stream that finished up about 20 minutes ago. So that works. What else have I been playing? We've been kind of busy, so I haven't had a super amount of time to play much of anything else. I talked a little bit about doing the manual cards and dice for strat football. Did I talk about that on the stream? Or I know I did a little bit of a video on it last week, but I actually talked about that on the show. No?
I don't think so.
Okay. So one of the things you can do with some of the Stratomatic PC games is do it manual. And, it's one of those games that I was always reluctant to buy the football game because football is not my favorite sport. And I'm getting more and more reluctant into buying games I know I'm not going to play that much, just because, you want to support the people who made the games, but it gathers virtual dust and piles of shame and stuff that we've talked about. And so I picked up the Strat football game a year and a half ago or whatever it was, and liked it, which I wasn't expecting to like it. I'd played it in college with the older, bigger cards, and you got someone. Did you picked up the 93 complete game with 93? Was that a yard sale? Where'd you score that?
That was Facebook Marketplace. Somebody was selling an inbox, never opened. I think it was 93 football game.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove. It was like a half hour away. I drove down, picked it up. I think I bought it for $10 or $20. It was
you got your money's worth. You got a good deal.
I mean, I haven't. It was a great deal, and I only have 2 teams that I separated. So the rest of the teams are still on the sheets, and I try to sit on them, and I couldn't play it by myself. It's not a game.
It is probably for cards and dice. It is not a good solitaire game.
Now there was a helper for that, like the hockey, but I couldn't get it to work.
People who've made charts, and they've done what they can to make it. But on the surface, if you're new to the game without understanding the community or being part of the community, it is the worst of the 4.
Yeah, this was a couple years ago. I think I had it, and I put it on the table, and I was just like, oh boy. I saw how it was going, and it was very similar to the baseball in certain aspects, and a little bit to the basketball too. But I was just, this is going to be, you need a lot of space to spread out the cards. You probably want to have 2 people. So so the PC game, which handles the opposition, just does everything. You don't need any space to lay out the cards. And for some reason, that's the one game that there's some games that I prefer playing cards and dice over PC and vice versa. Well, this is the vice versa one. This is the one that I would probably only play on the PC.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because it's, again, I think despite the price point for, especially if you get the game in the retro seasons, but I think it's one of the easiest ones to get into if you were not a super rabid football fan.
Yeah. And I do like how in the PC game you can have the cards on the screen so you can follow along.
And that's the point I was going to make with that, was that it's one of the 2 games that you can do manually along with the baseball game. And so I said, what the hey? I'll try it. I use Ball Roller for that. And so it just kind of walks you through. And man, did that game just kind of click when I did that. I was disappointed you can't do it with the basketball game, but with the football game, you can. And so you're rolling the dice and you see where the results come from. I really need to get a hold of a penalty chart so I can understand how that works. And so I have a bunch of seasons because, once you buy, it does become like Pokemon after a while. You got to get them all. And played a really, really good game between, who was it? Dallas and Washington, 81 season, that Dallas hung on to win. Danny White probably had the unfortunate fortune of having to follow Roger Staubach. And everyone remembers Troy Aikman because of the Super Bowls. And everyone forgets that Danny White brought the Cowboys to 3 straight NFC championship games. Now, they lost them all, but he got them to 3 straight championship games. One was the catch. The one the year before was the 20-0 shellacking by the Eagles, who were the best team. And then the year after was when the Redskins upset at RFK to go to the Super Bowl. So it wasn't like Dallas was just glad to be here. They were really solid teams.
Yeah.
So that went right down to the end of RFK. And the next game I played was Cincinnati and Seattle, me playing Cincinnati, the computer playing Seattle. And it was 42-3 after 3 quarters Cincinnati, so the computer finished that up. But being able to do that and I did the video on it last week, and seeing the play develop is big for me. And I know that some people get that out of Action PC, and Second and 10 is real good for that as well if you can follow the text and read it. But it's just kind of like, okay, here is how it starts. There's no penalty to start the play or a potential sack depending on the first dice roll. The second die tells you what card you're going to read off of. The defensive calling I find to be easy because it's you're either right or you're either wrong.
Right.
And you can have bad things happen when you're right And good things happen if you're wrong. So it's not an either or situation. And then you've determined what card you read off of in that. And yeah, I guess it's kind of gamey because it is, but you can do pure card and dice. And again, I think the one thing about football games that makes them harder to stream is the length of time it takes. And my attention span and trying to figure out what to do is about a half hour.
You know, I was about to say that the thing about football games is they just take a long time. If you're playing the play-by-play, no matter if it's PC or cards and dice, it's going to be a long slog. And so you know that going in. So I'm dying to play some football myself, but I'm looking, it's like, man, I just don't have the hour and a half, 2 hours to set up and play a game. It's just not there right now. But at the same time, if you play a quicker play game, you know, whether it's a drive-by-drive or whether it's a medium play game of some kind, it's not the same as playing play-by-play. So it's weird. It's like play-by-play is too long, but you get the full football field. If you play a quicker game, you get the game done faster, but you don't feel like you've played the game the entire way. So it's such a catch-22.
Let me interject because Anthony has done the full Division I for Glory Days College Football for 2022. All 130 teams have been released. And I know you don't like college football, and I know that probably wouldn't mean too much to you. I honestly think, though, that his combination system of a hybrid system of you want to resolve the drive, great. You don't, you just want to move on to the next one, go. I think that's going to be your sweet spot. And if he listens, you know, come up with a couple pro teams for that, or at least some, you know, I think that for you, and I think for a lot of other people, hits the sweet spot of, you know, when you're doing a game. And again, that Cincinnati-Seattle game, where it was over, it was 42-3. And when you have like, what are you going to do? Seattle's going to pass, and everyone's playing the bench, and you're getting those cards. That, you know, I automatically just skip that, which I would never do for a basketball game or never do for a hockey game. When I'm playing those in Stratomatic, you just want to get it done.
Yeah.
I just think that kind of bring it in when you want, build up the thing. And I just think I'm surprised that more people haven't gone in that direction.
I just when I play a football game, I like to play the full thing. You know, because the closest thing to what you were talking about there that I've have is the play games, whereas you can play, you know, the Al Wilson fast drive football for a little bit, then you can go to the play second season express, which plays pretty quick, and then if you want, you can jump back into the full second season game and play the play-by-play. So you can do that with that if you'd like, and they've developed a system that can play all three of those games if you'd like. So that will speed through the game. But you know, when I bought second season from Play, I bought the Express version too, and I bought it almost solely to play Express. And while Express is fine, when I played the full game, it just, if I'm going to sit down and play, I'm going to play the full game. The full game is that good. It just takes a long time. So again, my conundrum is, you know, which game do I play? How much time do I have? And it's, you know, I want to sit down and have the Thanksgiving meal, but I don't always have time to prepare the Thanksgiving meal. So I gotta go into the In-N-Out burger and grab a quick burger and go. So
and the other thing, and you can bring an Action PC and Second and 10 into this, is that it does all the bookkeeping for you when it automatically saves games. And so when you've had your fill of turkey, you just go away and everything is all set up until the next time that you come back to it.
I will say that the Strat Football is the one game out of the four that I have a real hard time getting around.
It really is meant to be a multiplayer game. Even on the screen when you're playing by yourself, and I'm Commander Solo when it comes to these things, is that there's even a chat window on the bottom. So if you want to, so again, you know, I mean, that's the $1 zillion question with Strat as their interface. But so I got into that and playing the manual cards and dice, and again, it kind of scratches that itch. At some point, I really just got to do a video on, you know, my conversion from pure digital, and we're not even talking about, you know, the Xbox or PlayStations or Sega Genesis, but really just more of the open engine. Just let me see where the result comes from. And that goes from that. The other thing I've been playing, and this has nothing to do with sports, Okay, I'm going to complain about my EVE Online career. So if you're not interested in mining my fake space rocks and that, fast forward a couple minutes. Gardner's already fallen asleep. All right. So I don't do pew pew, or I don't like doing pew pew, because even that is kind of hard for me to physically do. But I make all the stuff so you can go pew pew and kill other people. I'm fine with that. I'm not anti-violence. I just don't have the dexterity to pull it off. And so this week I got evicted from the place where I was mining my rocks to make my pew pew stuff. Woke up Monday morning to that. Had to negotiate my way out of my stuff is safe. To yesterday, I lost my 300 million fake dollar ship that I mine the rocks with, and you just know it's coming. You know, you saw them coming in. You can't get out fast enough, and they want bribes and all that. And so I got to be careful. But, just kind of a really rough week for that, because because it's people who play this, it's from all over the world.
Right.
It's all over the world. And the ransom note I got to, if you don't want this again, give us 20 million fake bucks. And, it was written in bad English, so they're not from English speaking. It's like, yeah, okay, that stuff used to really bother me, to get killed in a game. This for like, okay, yeah, whatever, it sucks. The thing that was the worst about it is all the profit I've made since I've started playing again, I lost.
Yeah. Because
I had to replace that ship. 350 million fake bucks. There's my rant for that. So I had some stuff in reserve and cashed in and had to rebuild, and now I got to watch out for that. But yeah, if you've ever played EVE Online, you know what I'm talking about there, and it's just one of those things that it's there. You just kind of get complacent, because I can sit there and do words with friends or do my bingo, or even I've chatted with you when I'm doing that. You don't really have to pay attention. Well,
yeah.
That a couple 100 million here, a couple 100 million.
I've played games like that where I
adds up to real money.
I get into it and it's like, oh man, something happens and you're like, that sucks.
Yeah. You just kind of have to brush. You rage. You go back to safety. You rage quit. You complain for a couple minutes and then So I don't think I've done anything else sports gaming wise. Just kind of. We've been busy doing things around the house. She's been off all week, and the weather's been halfway decent. And so, the strat football, half hour at a time, that does add up if, it's 2 hours a game. Again, some people, you either like taking that long to play a game or it drives you nuts. And I think if you know that it's going to take what to do, for me, it just gives you the experience. Oh, and I actually watched football, which I haven't, I watched the playoffs out on Sunday, and I'm sure I'll watch both the doubleheaders on Saturday and Sunday this weekend, because this is the part of the football season I actually like.
Yeah, the playoffs, sometimes they're really good. I'm not sure about that extra game or that extra team in the playoffs, because crying out loud, you got teams that are under 500 in the playoffs, and they're just getting destroyed. It was just like...
I just kind of wish that they would just make it 8 teams in the first round, so no one gets I understand why you're playing for the bye.
Yeah.
But at least if you win your division, it should be, you get the home game. But we had 3 quarterbacks this week of those teams that were third stringers. Miami, Baltimore, and San Francisco. Now, the guy from San Francisco, Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, he beats Dallas. He's taking the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. How about that for irrelevant, huh?
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what that does.
It's been a successful, regardless of what he does against Dallas, that's a successful year. At a home game in the divisional round. So anyway, that's what I've been playing.
Let's see. I just been playing the work game. I've been really busy with the hockey play-by-play and things like that. And so I did manage to squeeze in a game of my 1979 season. I think I was using season ticket that I played, so that's about the only thing I did. Enjoying that immensely. that season ticket as well as the pocket pennant run playing in Digital Diamond. So I'm going to hopefully wrap that up. I'm going to wrap up the Spiders soon. So I'm hopefully going to be wrapping up a few of the baseball products I'm working on. I got the itch to play either some football or hockey. But again, if I want to play Apple Hockey or Hockey Bones or any of my football games, they're going to be longer games unless I play the quicker play games. But I like to play the longer games, but I just haven't had a chance. So that hasn't happened yet. So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and radio because I just been working and going to bed. And a couple of things I want to bring out here. So instead of what I'm playing, I heard a couple of things that were really neat. 27-0, the Chargers are beating Jacksonville, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but I was listening to the sports talk. I don't know if it was Fox Sports or CBS Sports Radio. When I was listening, they said that when it was 27-0, someone went in and bet.
Yes, this is true.
Was it $100,000 or $1 million to win 11,000?
Yes,
I forget what the number was, but it was a very large number of money. So they
vanity bet if there ever was one.
Yeah,
right?
so I forget if it was $1 million to win 11,000 or if it was $100,000 to win 11,000. But at 27-0, a guy went in and bet, and they took the bet. Guy's thinking he's going to win $11,000. And so when they came back, he lost that bet. And it cost him, again, I said it was 100,000 or millions, whatever it was. But imagine that, 27-0. They actually took the bet. Again, it's dollars to donuts at that point there that you're betting against. And he lost. It's like, oh, man, what are the chances? It's just terrible,
Second biggest comeback in playoff history and the third biggest in NFL history.
Yep, it was unbelievable. And I'm listening to this weird podcast that talks about all kinds of things. And they did a show on math. And
on math or maps?
Math, numbers. Okay. And some of the stuff made absolutely no sense when you listen to it, but they proved it to be true. And the one thing they said is if you took a piece of rope and wrapped it around the earth, okay, right at the equator. Okay, right against the, theoretically. If you wanted to raise that rope 1 foot off the ground, or 1 foot off the whatever it was, 1 foot off the earth.
Surface.
Off the surface of the earth, how much would you have to add to that rope to make that happen?
I didn't realize there'd be math in this show.
And do you know what the answer was?
What?
It was something like 6.5 feet.
That's it?
That's what I said. I said, that makes no sense. I mean, you're wrapping this all the way around the world, and you want to lift it up a foot.
25,000 kilometers of rope.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And he said, nope, the math is the math. It's pi times this times that, and no matter what it is, that's what it is. And he goes, here's another question. If you took a tennis ball and did the same thing, you put a piece of string around a tennis ball, and you raised it a foot off the tennis ball, how much more string would you need? Six, same amount, 6 point whatever feet. He goes, because it's all just math. No matter how big that circle is, it's just. So I haven't gone. I need to go back and look at it and kind of calculate that myself because I'm a numbers type of guy. But I thought it was interesting. Like you're thinking that it's like cheapest creep. This thing's wrapped around, like you say, how many miles around the earth, and you're gonna lift it up even a smidgen. You got to figure that rope's gonna be adding a ton of 6 feet.
6 feet.
Very interesting.
I was watching an English quiz show. And one, true or false, someone actually, did a mathematical theorem to prove the most basic thing that we've ever learned, that 1 + 1 = 2. And it took him 100 pages to prove that 1 + 1 = 2.
Oh, wow.
Mathematical, beyond a shadow of a doubt that the one apple I brought into lunch in kindergarten and the one apple you brought into lunch in kindergarten gave us 2 apples. But no, to mathematically prove it, 100 pages.
Yeah, they had a whole bunch of things on that math show and they were talking about, and I was like, some of them were like, there's no way. But it was like, it's all math. And
interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So I got to go back and listen to it again because it was frustrating me because I'm like, there's no way you're just adding 6 feet if you're going around the whole world. But math is math. So anyway, so should we get into the topic of the day?
Here we go. At some point, you should, if you haven't ever, look up the Monty Hall problem. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Play the music and I do it. I'll take our number three, Monty. It was someone who was a fan of Let's Make a Deal.
Yep.
And they went through the statistical probability of the three doors of either hitting the zonk or the good prize. So the car and the fur and the trip around to Acapulco, or getting the goat that's going to eat your garbage. What were the, you think it's 1 and 3, but no, I mean, it's called the that's the Monty Hall enigma or something like that. So look it up. It actually isn't as cut and dried as you think. And so every time you play that, that's what it sounds like, one of those.
Oh yeah. The other thing just came to mind is they said, how many people do you need in a room to make sure that two people have the same birthday? Okay, now so birth date, not necessarily year, but the date.
Well, if my dad was still alive, it would just be 2 because we shared the same birthday. But
so that was the question, and I think they said that if you put 23 people in a room, you had a 90% chance of making that happen. And I'm like, well, wait, he's like, there's 365 days in a year to possibly have a birthday on. And I'm like, 23 is going to give you 90%. And he says 60 would almost get you 100% chance that someone's going to have the same day.
Someone that lives on my floor, there's 11 of us that live on this floor, or in my apartment building, and a gentleman down the hall and I had the same birth date, not the same birth year, but the same birthday.
Yeah. And I guess the theory is, they said if you put 23 or 25 people in a room, that so you start with the first guy and he's got 24 people to check. And you go to the second guy and he's got 23 people to check. And you go to the third guy, he's got 22 people to check. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you get on the line, there's so many chances of it happening that 60 was almost guaranteed. I would think, you need 300 or so to get it closed. But
you would, well, not this. I can see some of that. Now, my first high school I went to, I think that graduating class had either 57 or 63. I didn't graduate from there. I moved. But 4 of those people were no longer kids. They're now actually older than I am. They're all 53 this year. 4 of those people were born on the exact same day.
Out of the 57, yeah.
Out of the 57, March 15th, 1970.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, isn't it?
That's wild, isn't it?
Numbers are crazy because I looked at that. I was like, there's no way. But when they explain it, it's like, okay, sounds good.
I mean, again, if you had my second, where I graduated from, 153, I think at that time I was the largest in that school's history, and there wasn't anyone that was born November 26, 1971 that I went to school with. But yeah, I think it's 4 in that small class born on the exact same day.
That is crazy. So
all right.
Well, so back to some games here. So playing as the enemy, part 2, or revisited, whatever you want to call it.
Well, let me tell you how this came.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Yeah.
Because going back to last week's show, and I had the Bobby Witt, who apparently I not only did I throw his arm off, he literally was injured after that game and didn't pitch till August. And so going through and having the no-hitter and when do you pull him and all that. And so I've started to try an experiment on my own channel about just give me one thought-provoking question a week. It has to do with sports. It doesn't necessarily have to do with gaming, because the gaming questions we normally handle and talk about back and forth for the half hour. And so John Kuzniak, Midlife Crisis, asked me, did you ever have a case where you rooted against someone to throw a no-hitter? I couldn't do that. And I kind of turned it into, well, what happens when you are playing against your enemy again, or as your enemy, and it's not necessarily in a single team replay? So what happens, because, I'm a Red Sox fan and I'm not the world's biggest Yankee fan. And so what do I do anything differently if I'm featuring the Yankees against somebody, a team that I don't necessarily like? And then Dave reminded me that we had revisited. So that's how it came up. It's like, well, when did we do this? Well, we did this a couple of years ago. So taking a look at, what has changed, what hasn't changed for us when you play as a team that you really don't like. And so that's how we got here. So I'll let you answer that first.
For the longest time, the only thing that's really changed for me is like it's hard to play as the enemy because you are rooting against them. You don't like the team. Maybe you don't like some of the players. Maybe they broke your heart as a kid, And so there's reasons why for the longest time I didn't play any Yankees or any Montreal Canadiens on my channel. Very rarely would you see me playing either one of those two teams because they were just killers. For the Bruins and the Red Sox back in the day.
Because they were so good.
I get so many bad memories and so many frustrating memories as a kid, losing to those teams. So for the longest time, I didn't. And then I played a Canadiens game. I think I played, it was Chicago Blackhawks, and it was the 70-71 finals.
Yeah.
And I forget what game I played it in, but it was a longer play hockey game. It was either Bones or Apple Hockey. And I played that out, and boy, and I was so rooting for Chicago to win. I really was. And then Chicago is back at home at Game 6 trying to clinch, and Dryden got hurt. And I rolled, it must have been Hockey Bones. And so Dryden got hurt, and he was out for the rest of the game. And they brought in the backup, whoever it was. I don't know if it was Rutherford.
It's too early for Bunny.
Maybe it was Jim Rutherford or something like that. But anyway, he came in and he got lit up for 3 goals, and Chicago won the game and won the series. So I was rooting and I played it fair. I did. I played it fair because Tony Esposito had got hurt early in the series. So I says, well, if I'm going to let one team get hurt, I have to play injuries on the other team. And I don't always play injuries, but in a series I will, something like that. And so it was I was rooting so hard against them. And then there was another time that they were. I think it was against the Rangers. I think it was the 78 project that you, Al, and I did. And
did we get the Rangers and the Habs in the final? Did we actually get the real final for that?
We got the real final, but before that, the Rangers were playing the Canadiens to try to get to the finals, and the Rangers were up 3-2.
Then that wasn't the real final because the real final that year was New York Montreal, wasn't it?
No, it was Boston Montreal.
Okay.
So we got that, but New York in our replay, New York ended up playing Montreal. They were up in the series. They lost Game 6. They were up. I want to say they were up 4-1 in Game 7, and I think I was using shootout hockey for Game 7. And Montreal came back with like 5 or 6 goals, and they crushed them. And that I was so bummed out because the Rangers were so close to beating the Canadiens and knocking them off, and just. You start rolling the dice, and the percentages were all in the Canadian favor, and they did. They got all the rolls, and they came back, and they scored all the goals, and they ended up winning by quite a bit over the Rangers in that game. So I was pretty bummed about that. Then I played just last week, I think it was. I think I played Angels and the Yankees in my 79 replay because both of those teams are leading their divisions. So I said, okay, we got a good matchup here, and so we'll play this out. And again, I was rooting so hard for the Angels to beat them, and they actually did. And I played it out fair and square in the whole bit. But it's so hard because these teams just and you respect now as you're older, you respect the team, and it's there's no hatred anymore because it's so far in the past. But you still look at these teams and you're like, oh man, you crushed so many of my championship dreams as a kid that I would have loved to win one cup or one World Series watching some of these Boston teams who were always a second or third place team. And so I started to play some of the playing as the enemy, and I avoided it for a long time, and I finally did, and now it's like, okay, it's a fake game. What we're doing is fake. It's just our own entertainment. It's not going to change anything in real life. You know, it's not going to change. I'm not going to have the Yankees or the Canadians lose and they're going to take away a cup or a World Series championship from them. That's already a done deal, but it is hard seeing them win it again. So it is fun when they don't win it. But I'm starting to come around to the fact that I need to play some of these teams because they were good teams, and I shouldn't avoid playing good teams just because I don't like them.
Dave Hodge, Hockey Night in Canada host, until he flipped a pen one night in a game that went to overtime, and that's how we do things in this network, and that's how you get fired from a dream job from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Saw an interview with him from 1990. So a few years after the flip, and he'd stopped dyeing his hair, and boy, it was jet white at that point, Snow White at that point. And so, they asked Hodge about, going from week to week and doing this, and he was the host on Hockey Night in Canada for 16 years.
Oh, wow.
From 71 to when Ron McLean took over in, the middle of the 87 season. And so they asked, and Hodge said, I grew up a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan, lived and died by what they did. But when I became a broadcaster, you start to root for people and stories, people that, good people that, and I just learned not to care who won. If they won, great. And if they lost, so what? And for me, doing this as a as a point of view of a broadcaster and bringing, game of the week type stuff, Team A versus Team B, I've said this for years. I really don't care who wins. I want a good game. You get a good story out of it. I mean, the Bobby Witt thing kind of joins the Mario Mendoza thing and Dave Stegman and all the other things that have popped up on the channel as unexpected things over the years that I really could give to. It's about who wins. When I had the ALCS, 78 ALCS with the Rangers and the Yankees, and Game 5 at Yankee Stadium with Ron Guidry on the hill, okay, the Yankees and Dodgers in the World Series, that's what most people want. That's what you're going to get. And, yeah, I'd be rooting for the Dodgers to do that, but the Rangers were a decent story. And then Bobby Bonds hits a 3-run homer off of Guidry in the first, and Guidry's gone by the second, and the Rangers win the game. And I was kind of disappointed the Yankees had lost because it was that 78 Yankee team was the first one I really hated. It wasn't a huge Steeler fan growing up or anything like that, but, I had learned to hate the Yankees being a Red Sox. I didn't hate them. I actually felt bad for them going in. And so, I always try to treat them fairly because I understand that my audience is going to be rooting for the Yankees or the Leafs or the Canadians or the Lakers or whatever, Steelers or whatever it is that I do. And that you can kind of poke fun at them somewhat. I had a Red Sox-Yankee game a couple of weeks ago, last week, I think, was a really good game. And you can kind of make the jokes about Clemens being Darth Vader and all that, but it was much more in jest than, the Red Sox have to win to defend my honor. Because that's not the case at all. I mean, Carl Everett was a center fielder for the Red Sox, and he's one of the players I loathe the most, from that. And so, yes, I think age does stuff with that. And the short answer is you play it straight out. You know where you can have fun with your audience. Now, at some point, I'm going to be doing a single team project all the way through, and you're going to run into either – I never really hated the Bruins, so even if it was Montreal, and even in the 80s, you really couldn't hate the Lakers. How could you hate Magic Johnson?
Right, yeah.
Or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Dennis Rodman? Yeah, you wanted to, there. There were Philadelphia 76ers I didn't like, Barkley, Bobby Jones. I mean, players that got under your skin. But could you hate Dr. J?
Can you hate Maurice Cheeks? I mean, come on. No one hates Maurice. Could
you hate Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
No.
No, I mean, absolutely not. And, the biggest
I used to love watching Bird and Magic when they played.
Oh, those were great games.
When one would hit an unbelievable shot, the other one would stick out his hand, and they'd slap each other's hands going back down the court. It was like such a mutual respect. And they were super competitive, those two guys, but they had such a respect for each other and that's something you didn't get a lot in the 70s and 80s. You didn't get a lot of that chummy stuff. Now you do. Things are different now, but back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't get that.
Right.
So when Magic would hit a ridiculous shot, Bird would stick out his hand, and Magic would slap it going by. Bird would do the same. Magic would stick out his hand, and that was really cool to see. So it was like I say, it's really hard to hate some of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've done in the 85-86 Celtics replay. They've done a couple of games against Detroit, and I guess that is really the last team I truly hated.
Well, I hate the Hawks now because now I hate them because I can't beat them in these damn games.
Right.
Back in the day, I didn't.
But, I mean, you hear the stories of Larry Bird and Bill Laimbeer.
Oh, yeah.
Which we can't repeat on a semi-family show. And I always, I play the game fair because in that game I played both sides, and you got to play. You don't need to give the 85-86 Celtics any help. They're going to beat you anyway. But there's always this little something special after the final score of that. But again, going back to how you play those games, you play them if you cheated, if you put your finger on the scale.
Yeah,
no,
no.
There's not a lot of fun with it.
No, why? I mean, I want these teams to lose, but I don't want to cheat to make them lose because, again, what's the sense of playing the game if you cheat, no matter what? And don't get me wrong, we've all been mad because our team lost, and we've had bad rolls and been frustrated and had a team lose at the last second or last inning or whatever and been frustrated. But because that's part of it. We get emotional. We get involved in this. It is very important to us, these games. But yeah, to go and to purposely cheat to make somebody lose, then why bother playing the game? Just at that point, I wouldn't bother. And then that's why a lot of times I don't play the teams that I don't like, because I don't want to be in that situation where they win and it makes me mad. So I play less of them. Although lately I have been playing a little bit more, like I talked about.
When you do a single team, you're obviously going to run into them because it's going to be a rival of some sort. Even the Lakers and Celtics play twice in the regular season, even if they didn't meet in the finals. Detroit, you're playing 3 or 4 times a year. In baseball, you play the Red Sox and Yankees 19 times a year. And some years, Tampa was the fiercest rival, and when Pedro would throw at a batter. And so those kind of pick up some intensity. Again, when you're playing more for yourself, like I said, when you're doing it I find that when you do it for a more specific audience, you can play it down the middle. Again, you can make jokes, but again, for every, if you don't want to alienate your audience. And so, talking about the streams that I do, not necessarily the games that I play that are offline. And I think that's the point you're trying to make too, is that, it's obvious that I am a fan of Team X, and I really don't want Team Y to be all that successful, but it's kind of hard to pick an era of Yankee baseball when they weren't successful.
Right.
And you don't want to alienate the fans of that team who are coming in to watch because, okay, once in a while you can get something in there. But again, okay, we grew up with the Munsons and the Fisks fighting and Bill Lee. And I mean, Reggie Jackson did not give anyone outside of the metro New York area the warm and fuzzies. Could you hate Derek Jeter? Could you hate Mo Rivera?
Yeah.
I mean, there are characters you didn't like, but again, and I think time kind of softens those things. I think so we go circular with that. But no, it's either grudging respect, which you talked about for LaFleur,
yep,
and that era, Montreal, to you go back to some of those '50s Yankees teams with Mantle and Yogi Berra and that, and you just got to go, wow. You guys were.
I think the other thing that might soften it up too is when players die. When you have a death, yeah.
Well, the first time I ever cried over a death of anybody, because I was lucky enough as a kid not to lose a family member, was Thurman Munson.
Yeah. I'm thinking more recent. When you have like LaFleur died, and so it's like, boy, I tell you, any hate that you had for LaFleur went away when he died. And not that there was much, because, he did play with the Rangers and the Nordiques, and that was kind of fun. But any of those guys there that pass away on those teams that you don't like, you start to think, man, do I really hate this guy? Did I, it's like, he wasn't so bad. And so I find that when players pass away from some of those teams that, playing as the enemy, so to speak, that softens the blow as well, too. The soft spot of my heart kicks in, and it's like, okay, well, now that guy wasn't so bad. Maybe I'll play this team in honor of him or something like that. And so I find that when players die that were on some of the enemy teams, so to speak, that softens it up as well.
Kenny Stabler. I mean, there was no half pregnant with the Raiders. You either loved them or you hated them. But there were certain players on, Madden, Kenny Stabler. And I was like, wow, okay, made your point.
Yeah. So I still shy away from playing as the enemy whenever possible, but I've been trying to embrace that and deal with that, especially with a lot of these athletes that have been passing away. And it just, like I say, that softens the blow for me. And the more time that goes on, it softens the blow. And now that, that, quote, my team has won some championships, that makes it easier too. It's kind of like, okay, we might not have won back then, but we won some here in my lifetime, so I can kind of, it's not like we haven't won anything. So
my first thought after coming down a little bit from the euphoria of the 04 Red Sox winning was to forgive the 86 Mets.
Yeah,
we had our championship.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, everything's forgiven now, and no one's mad anymore.
We got it.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah. So I tend to find that when you win the championship, it just takes that monkey off the back, and a lot of that, I hate the word to use hate, but I guess that's what it is. You hate against the other team, or maybe guys that screwed up for your team or whatever. That just all goes out the window, and it's a win for everybody at that point there. And so so I so the championships too will help ease the pain. And so
yes,
so you look back, you're like, okay, we didn't win it back then, but we have won some. So at least we won some. You know what I mean? And
I have to see 4. I never thought I'd see 1. I've seen 4.
Oh, with baseball, right?
Yeah, with the Red Sox, they've won 4. They won 4 in 14 years.
Jeepers, yeah, I think you're right. There was somebody put up something the other day on social media, and it was like Tom Brady's.
I saw that you posted that.
Yeah, he won a Super Bowl every other year of like the last 10 years, and then finally he didn't win. He went back-to-back years without winning a Super Bowl. That's ridiculous because he had 3 with New England and 1 with Tampa Bay. So if you go lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, lose. This is the first time in 10 years that he's gone back-to-back years without winning a Super Bowl. How ridiculous is that? I mean, that's ridiculous. Now, I know there was a big gap between his third and his fourth one there, too. But, I mean, just in the last 10 years, there's a guy they're making fun of his age and go to the retirement home and the whole bit. Well, here's a guy that couldn't go more than 2 years without winning a Super Bowl in the last 10 years. You don't make fun of him all you want, but that was fun. Going back to Bird for a second, have you ever watched any of the Larry Bird either highlights or commentaries? Yeah. I go to YouTube all the time and I watch them, and I've seen them all, though they're all the same over and over and over. But I love the stories about how one of the guys said that they call the timeout, they're winning by 1, and Bird comes over and says, I'm getting the ball, and I'm going to take the shot right here in front of your bench and win the game. And they come out of the timeout, they give it to Bird, he dribbles in front of their bench, takes the shot, goes in, winks at the player's bench. It's just like, it's such a jerk. And he put it in. If he missed it, they could laugh at him. But every time he would trash talk, and he backed it up.
One of those was Xavier McDaniel with Seattle. He does that, hits the game winner, and then Seattle calls timeout, and Bird's chirping like, damn, I didn't mean to leave you 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Larry stories are great.
They are.
The Larry's, I mean, they're just, I mean, you could have put a piece of paper on the floor that, that was as high as he jumped.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, they'll come out about the other players, the LeBrons and the Kobes, and, But
Larry, he walked into like the All-Star weekend one time, and it was the 3-point competition.
Never took off the warm-up
jersey. He walked in the room and goes, okay, who's coming in second? Yeah. And he went out, never took off the warm-up jacket, just won the thing. And it was just, oh, man, I could see how you could hate Bird if you weren't on his team, especially if it was trash talking. Oh, my gosh. Someone that trash talks and then backs it up, it's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's like, I hate this
guy. The height of Bird on the duel was a Game 7 in '88 between your beloved Atlanta Hawks and the Celtics at the Garden, and it was a Game 7 and one of those ones that we were supposed to go someplace, and I just kind of pissed off my mother, and we weren't leaving until that game was over. And it was, I mean, there may have been 10 men on the floor, but it was Bird and Dominique, and the Celtics won.
Oh yeah.
Bird had 23 and Dominique had 21 in the fourth quarter. And it really was anything you can, it was a game of horse.
Yeah, back and forth. Yeah, there was some great ones like that.
And it was just, and so that it was just something you'd never seen before. And that was on the back end of Bird's career. And the Celtics certainly weren't the Celtics at that point. They were still a good team, but they weren't a championship team at that point. But yes. But as a Celtic fan, that's not an enemy that I've played. Usually, you can kind of get it, with one or two players. Again, Isaiah and Lambier, not my favorites. Rodman, you just appreciated because he was so good defensively. But it's just I get basketball especially just because all it takes is one.
Yeah, one guy to get hot.
They're prominent to do that. I want to beat your butt.
So circling back to playing as the enemy, part 2, just kind of wrapping up here. One more thought I had. Do you think playing more as the enemy would be therapy, or do you think that it wouldn't matter? You know what I mean? So if I played more Yankees and more Canadians, would that be therapy for me to work through that and not be not try to avoid playing them, or do you think that would not matter?
All right, and so I'll answer it this way. The Bruins finally did beat the Canadians in the playoff series after 40 years of not doing it. Mm-hmm. The Red Sox have won 4 World Series this century. So the Giants have won 2 Super Bowls, hitting right winning over the Patriots. I mean, maybe that would be the ones that if you did a Patriots-Giants Super Bowl replay, one of the 07 or whatever, it's easier for us to probably say, yeah, I forgive them because our teams have exercised their demons. All of the teams that I root for at some point have won championships over their rival or finally got over the cliff. If you're a Cubs fan, could you possibly be mad at the Cardinals or whatever? You finally won your championship. If you're a Maple Leaf fan, if you're a Cleveland Brown fan, if you're a fan of someone that keeps coming up short over and over and over again to a rival or whatever, then maybe you're not looking for therapy at this point. You want that revenge. And because our teams have done that, either won championships or exacted there were so many people in real life in 2004 that talked about the Red Sox beating the Yankees when they were down 3-0. Okay. As a fan of the sport, yeah, it was nice to do that, but I wanted the World Series. I had seen the Red Sox in the World Series twice. I remember 75, and we keep talking about 86. I wanted to see him win.
Didn't they sweep the Cardinals in that first one?
They ended up sweeping the Cardinals in that World Series. But, it wouldn't have, getting to the World Series for me wasn't the objective. It was winning the World Series I wanted to see them do. And so I had a friend who hated the Yankees more than life itself, who's no longer with us. And, they beat the Yankees, and I said, Buffalo boots to that. That's not what I said, but, for this, I said, I wanted the Cardinals. I wanted that. And not because the Cardinals had beat the Red Sox in the World Series prior. I wanted to see the Red Sox finally win the World Series. And yes, it was dramatic how they beat the Yankees to do it. But no, it was that trophy that I wanted. And so, no, I think for us, for those of us who have done that, it's therapy. But let's say you're a Buffalo Bills fan. It's not really, you can kind of feel better if you beat one of those 14, Washington, Dallas, or the Giants in a replay. But until you cross over it and get to that championship mountain, I'm not sure how much of that is therapeutic, to be honest.
Interesting.
Because I think it really was until the Red Sox won that World Series in 2004 that I finally forgave them. I forgave the Mets for something that happened 18 years before.
So you're saying if you're the only one that hasn't kissed a girl, then basically.
Essentially, yeah. You're going to say to a Detroit Lion fan, get over it?
Yeah. This is
or
true.
A Cleveland Brown fan, get over it? I'm sure that there are people who have replayed the fumble game or the drive game. Those were back-to-back years. and probably aren't going to get over it until Cleveland wins a championship.
Right.
But I'd be curious to hear what you think out there in podcast land about that. So, yeah, I think it depends on what our teams have done.
Okay. So we want to know, playing as the enemy. We're revisiting this with part 2. So what do you think? Do you play as the enemy? Or do you avoid that like I did for the longest time? How do you handle it? Are you tempted to cheat so that team will lose? Just be honest with us, folks. We want to know what you think. All right, before we wrap up episode 167, let's get to our 3 stars of the week.
Absolutely.
All righty. Number 3 star, a new Patreon, Jeff Hunter.
Woohoo!
Jeff, thank you so much for supporting the show. Our number 2 star, I only have an email. I emailed him back to get his name. I didn't get his name, but it looks like it was Jay Goodell, or G. Goodell. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he's a new Patreon. He's our number 2 star.
Yay!
And if he gets back to me on email and we get his name, we'll read it next week and thank him properly. And number 1 star, a longtime listener of the show and our YouTube channels, new Patreon as well, Todd Niemeyer.
Yay!
Toddo, thank you so much for supporting the show. And again, thanks to all of our Patreons for helping keeping this going. And, when I look back, Ron, when we did playing as the enemy the first time, it said it was 2 years ago, October something, and I don't know what year it was. That's how long we've been doing this, and it's a thanks to everyone who supports the show that we get to keep this going, because now, again, we now get to have 167 shows, and they're all being stored and backlogged and the whole bit over on Spreaker. So we want to thank you so much for helping us pay that bill.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so we wrap it up?
Sure.
All right, this has been the Digital to Dice podcast, episode 167. Ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is our website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. I'm interested in the comments on this one, Ron.
Be very curious to hear read what people put in.
Yeah, it's been, 2 years and 4 months since we talked about this, so I know we had some different thoughts on it. I wonder if you had different thoughts on this as well. So if you commented on the one from October of 2020, I think it was, have you changed when it comes to playing the enemy? Have you had any change of heart or changed the way you play things? So anyway, let us know. I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
And we'll talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.